What's going on, workforce? Brian here for Work to Game. I hope you're having a good day. I know that I am. But let's talk about these Anima Weapon Nerfs. So whether you are or aren't aware, patch 3.57 rolled out this week, and with it came a lot of prep work for Stormblood. And what I mean by that is that we've got no lockout on Dun Scythe, we got no weekly lockout on the gears from Alexander. So essentially it's a way that players can really either gear themselves up and get caught up and get ready for Stormblood, or gear up various alts and other jobs that they have as well to really prepare for it. Now there's a lot of value in having 270 gear for your characters, but we're going to dive into what those values are here in a little bit. But first, I wanted to talk about really the changes that they made to the Anima Weapon Quest line, the drop rates and all the little changes that came with specifically 3.57, and ask a couple of questions and kind of have a conversation regarding, is it fair that they made these kind of changes, and how does it make you feel, especially if you've already spent the time and you've already got either one or more Anima weapons. But first, let's dive into the rundown of what's changed. So first, the drop rate on luminous crystals has been increased. What the luminous crystal is, if you're not aware, it's when you go run fates in the 6 new zones of Heavensward, you have the chance to get a luminous crystal drop. Now, this has continually been increased over the patch cycle from 3.1 to now 3.57. So having that increase is not necessarily really ground shattering. It's what actually happened next that was, I think, really exciting in my opinion. And that's the fact that instead of having to have 3 from each zone, you just need to have 1 from each zone. So a reduction from 18 to 6. That's a huge turn in bonus. So if you've been sitting on luminous crystals, even if you had 2 of each, you could theoretically start that quest and get it done and completed instantly by just having to turn them in. So that's a huge change, one that I'm actually happy to see, and one that I actually might do another one on. I don't know. The turn-in that would net you 1 crystal sand will now net you 2. So it's 2 for the price of 1. I think that, sounds pretty good if you're on that step, and if you've already just completed it, ouch. But for the most part, these seem to be very helpful changes. So singing cluster cost got a reduction of almost 50%. So it really went from 150 lore tomes to gather your 50 of them to now only 80. Now I'm not on that step, so if it was a reduction in any of the required from 50, then I'm not aware of it. But either way, it's basically, if you just focused on lore alone for this, lore would have cost you 7,500 for the singing clusters. However, now it's going to cost you 4,000. There's other ways, and in fact, there's a quest that used to reward you 10. It will now reward you 18. So another huge boost to being able to acquire and complete that step. And so, like I said, almost a reduction of 50% on that step alone. So with all the reductions since it happened since the release of 3.1, all I know is it's easier than ever to be able to get an Anima weapon. And that begs the question, are you going to go for it now? Or are you going to go for additional if you've already got them? So why is all this important? Why is it important to have an Anima weapon in the first place? Why is it important to have 270 gear in the first place? And the answer is quite simple. If Stormblood has the same kind of content difficulty that Heavensward did, your 270 gear and your Anima weapon are going to really last you a long time into the new expansion before you have to worry about gearing up from either the gear that's provided or what you can craft or buy. And what I mean by that is, theoretically, your 270 gear could last you anywhere to level 65 to maybe 67 before really needing to be replaced. Maybe even your Alexander Savage gear might last a little bit longer in and of itself. Then your Anima weapon could theoretically last you all the way to 70. You won't need to get a new weapon because you've got one of the best ones currently in the game for that level range. So it's going to save you money and time, and it's going to allow you to be the most competitive, especially when tackling the new content. The other factor is, especially when you're talking about having your Anima weapon, is that if it works just like the Zodiac weapon did, it's going to allow you to skip that first phase. So the luminous crystals, where you needed 18 of them, players with the Zodiac weapon got to skip that completely. So there is a lot of benefit into doing that kind of work now, especially if you're looking for something to do. I'm going to leave it up to you on how you choose to spend your time, but I'm honestly really having an internal debate on finishing out my Anima weapon. I was like, well, I'll get to it, but now I'm like, well, this actually sounds pretty decent, and I might even start another one. So I've started it on Summoner, and I've never technically started my Dark Knight one, but I've really fallen in love with Dark Knight, so I think I'm gonna push forward with Dark Knight and get his finished. Okay, so I really want to ask a question to the community here at Work to Game and anybody else who's watching this video. Are these changes fair? Is it fair that you could be plugging away and really keeping current with Anima and get it completed and have the best weapon right now in the game, and then I can just show up and ideally in a couple of weeks have mine as well? So you've invested a good year and some time into every step along the way, and I've invested maybe half a month. Is it fair? I'd love to know your thoughts and your feedback on that answer. Now, if you think that it's not fair, I'd love to know, are you planning on taking advantage of these changes yourself for a second or a third, or who knows, like a 10th or 12th? Like, are you going to leverage this, or does it kind of leave you with this pit feeling in your gut where you're just like, I just can't do it again because I've already done it or done it more than once? And at the same time, like, why should I bother or care? I'm just kind of curious as to, and to kind of get a gauge on where you are with these changes. Now, and if you do think it's fair, I'd love to know why you think it's fair in the comments below. Now, as to how I would answer this question, I would argue that it is very fair. Now, I'm coming from an obvious bias. I haven't completed my first one, and yet I know many players who've completed several of them. I spend more of my time and have been working on leveling so that I can finish out some controller guides for the rest of the jobs, and I hope to be more invested in the current version of the Anima as well as the next version of the Relic when it comes to Stormblood, because we know already that they're going to do that and it's going to be based in Eureka. But I do think it's fair for the reason that they communicated it to us. They communicated how it worked within ARR, they communicated how it worked within Heavensward, and we kept seeing reductions to the process to make it easier and easier as time went on. So because of that communication, because we know that this is going to happen, we're not sold a bill of goods. It's, if we went and put in all this effort and all this struggle and we achieved this great achievement, and so then they just pull the the rug from under us, and then they say, well, we're glad that you put in that effort, but now it's free. Yeah, I could see that, there being an argument for, like, wait, so we put in the hours, we made the investment, and now our exclusive club isn't exclusive anymore. And that's why I think this is fair, is because this isn't a surprise. If you were surprised by these changes or the fact that they did reduce the difficulty over time, I do feel for you, but at the same time, just note that it's going to be this way going forward, and it was this way before we got here. So hopefully there aren't too many people that fall in that boat. But in that same vein, on that same note, I do feel that the game should reward players who do it the hard way and are first to achieve those weapons and really get in and do that. And I think that that's something that the achievement system, the title system, and even having some special icon by your name can designate that for you. So you would always have that bragging right, despite the fact that you could be standing next to somebody with the exact same weapon. The fact that you did it the hard way, the long way, long hand, being able to recognize and celebrate that fact that you were one of the first to do this, I would fully support a system like that. And hopefully when Yoshi P talks about changes to the achievement systems and all the things that, would be really great to help inspire and incentivize all the current and existing content that we have in the game, this is one of those ideas that I think could be really big. But at the same vein, I'd love to know what your thoughts were. Should this even be a thing? Should we even reward people for doing it by the long way, the hard way? And then as things get easier, well, maybe those achievements and those titles aren't available. And so that there will always be this proof that I was here, I did this, almost like the Battle of Carnot, where like everybody who is like kind of in 1.0, we have this shared experience, we have this thing that, people can't necessarily take away from us, but at the same time, people can see the cutscenes and we can talk to them and we can tell them the stories about how difficult it was. And that's the whole point of it, just to help kind of, I guess reward and say thank you for doing this, the long way. And yes, you get the rewards, you get the experience, you get to, I guess, look back and say, man, back in my day, we had to grind 18 luminous crystals, and you kids you have it so easy with your 6. This is ridiculous. But outside of bragging rights that way, it would be fascinating and interesting. But Those are just my thoughts. I'd love to know yours on this and any of the questions that we talked about here in this video. I'd love to know what you're most excited about for Stormblood and what you're doing in the game now. So let's just have that conversation. We're about to get into Stormblood News Central with Yoshi P kicking off a live letter on the 28th, and then in May we're going to be seeing the battle system changes, the new job-specific UI. It's going to be a lot of fun, and officially, with early access, we are less than 2 months away from Stormblood, and this time is going to fly by. But that wraps it up for me in this video. This is Work to Game, and my name's Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next. But until then, I hope you have a fantastic week, and take care. Hey, it's me. Thanks so much for watching this video. You should click over here to see more videos just like it, or you should click down here to check out our recent vlog. But you can also click somewhere down here below to hit the subscribe button, as well as check out our other info. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.